Hi, welcome to the reviews of the first 11 lessons of this course in mental health. I've called the course Everyday Miracles, so welcome to the review of the first 11 lessons of Everyday Miracles. Now, we spent 5 minutes on each particular lesson. It's still going to mean 55 minutes or an hour. So as I edit this video, I will put chapters in, so you can take one review at a time, 2 or 3, or do them all, whatever suits you best. Also on the online page, I have 11 separate PDFs, one PDF for each review, which you can read at your leisure. So at the outcome of this, I hope the foundations for the Everyday Miracles mental health support will become crystal clear to you. So very quickly, I introduce the vision of 2 levels of consciousness. So one is the one driven by the brain inside the skull here. And I call that the emotional, analytical, perceptual capacity of our brain. And when I speak of mind, I rather call it consciousness, and I think that makes it much more accessible and easier to dive into, make these concepts relate to your everyday reality. So when I say everyday reality, these experiences that you have every day, they're driven by this emotional, analytical, perceptual consciousness or mind. But from now on, I'm going to call it consciousness. So for example, I'm hungry, then that's a motivation for me to start finding food, and I might feel like this or that. If I'm at home or at work and there's a fridge, I might go to the fridge or to the pantry. That's my analytical mind. And then when I consume that food, I have an experience which is great, mundane. I might just inhale the food because I'm not particularly focusing on it, but you get the drift. It's an emotional, analytical, perceptual consciousness. And what we've learned is that when we're born, we can't even see. Then first of all, we get black and white vision. Then we get color vision. We start recognizing people and objects. And then people in our proximal zone for development start saying like paper. And then we go to something else, like a picture on the wall, and we point to say paper, and they say, no, that's a picture or a painting, and this is paper. And so we start associating sound with form, and then later on, we're learning more and more about it. What can we use these forms for? And then we start to learn how to write language and speak it, and so forth, and then we can communicate that way as well. But you see, there's a lot of steps involved. We're getting more and more removed from our original consciousness. But then, as we learned in the new death experience, the experiencer is still conscious, although the brain is clinically dead. So what that means is there's another level of consciousness that is not related to this emotional, analytical, perceptual capacity of the human brain. And of course, we think that animals that have a brain sort of have that same mechanism, maybe not as evolved as humans, and so forth, but particular trees and plants don't. However, people in mystical experiences or with psychic qualities, or who are in a near-death experience, sometimes actually communicate with a tree, say. Now, it's very obviously a tree doesn't have a brain. So it's not weird and I'm not hallucinating. It actually is possible to communicate with the plant world, for example, the flora and not just the fauna. So what is the communication like? Well, of course, it is not using words and symbols and like we used to with our brains. It's different. But it's now proven by research that if people with anxiety or depression spend half an hour just lying in a forest, their anxiety and depression reduces. And if they do it frequently enough, they can even heal completely from that anxiety and depression. And it's maybe because the brain is not present in a tree. And trees therefore can be very cleansing. So similar like the people who are clinically brain dead in a near-death experience find all of their stresses have just gone. They may be in conflict with their family, going through a divorce, losing their job, whatever. In a near-death experience, all of that stress and conflict is gone in an instant, miraculously. So maybe if you communicate with the plant world, it can be very healing because there's no brain, there's no organ that fills that consciousness of the plant world with stresses like we do. It's an idea, I haven't proven it, so I could be completely wrong, but I'm just like to introduce you to these two levels of consciousness. So we talked about that when you access or connect or remember your authentic self, that authentic self is whole. So it's a holistic kind of consciousness. Whole means you can only be love. You cannot be love and hatred and anger and frustration all at the same time or fluctuating. That is a consciousness that's part of our brain-driven consciousness, our emotional, analytical, perceptional consciousness. But your authentic self is whole, and it's also not part of space and time in the sense that there's no time flowing, there's no linear time. So the best word that's traditionally used is that it is eternal. But it's not eternal in the sense like it's 100 and trillion, billions and zillions years old, because that is an idea from linear time. But when you're outside of time, there is no time flow, so there is no aging. You are what you are, and you are that permanently. That's why it is stable. Like my name is Michael, it was Michael 20 years ago, and it will be Michael in another 20 years. So my name is stable. It's not open to discussion. Of course, yeah, there's a possibility of changing it and all that. But as an analogy for stability, that example could work for you. Michael 20 years ago, Michael now, 20 years from now, Michael. I'm always Michael. It's stable. So your authentic self is always the same. It's been created. You can't change it. It is eternal. Not in the sense of a long, long time of trillion, billions of years, but in the sense it's outside of time. There's none of this experience of linear time, which we experience through our bodily identity, and then of course our brain, which gives us emotional, analytical, perceptional capacity, and therefore experiences that are driven by that. And I've been watching on YouTube videos on physics, and people are very much drawn now to look at philosophy and religions and mystical experiences, take drugs even, to be in a mind-altering state, to come up with new concepts of how to explain the physical world around us. And unfortunately, you can never, ever get to the fundamental consciousness of your authentic self through analysis. So you might go like, I've watched lots of different YouTube videos, listens to Krishnamurti and videos on Ramana Maharshi and so forth. However, I still doubt the near-death experience may be real, or I've spoken to people who had out-of-body experiences and they didn't know it was a backlash from maybe taking LSD or magic mushrooms and this kind of stuff. And the point that I like to make to that, don't put yourself in this stress because it is an analytical action of your mind that wants to do that. Now, the analytical part of your mind was not designed to come up with any answers. So the best that it can do is make a postulate and then go on from there with mathematics or whatever tool there is at hand that the mind has been skilled in. Oh, okay, I carry on and start preaching almost. But that's what mental health support is about, to reconnect, remember, find your authentic self. Whereas in the Bible said, seek you first the kingdom of heaven, and then everything else will be added on. Or know ye not that you need to be born again. So yeah, you don't go through a physical birth, but you are reborn back to your authentic self, which is rather of a spiritual nature, and that is a poor word because there's so many different interpretations of spiritual. So yeah, sorry about that, I don't have a better word. Or in the old traditions, like in Delphi, where the oracle was, know thyself. Or physician, heal thyself. Don't be an unhealed healer and try to manage anything. Because the idea is that once you connect with your authentic self, naturally you start healing by being undone from all of the stuff that you've placed in your consciousness that was just a concept, a belief, a faith, or whatever it is. But once you know your true self, you really enter into a whole new realm. Knowing cannot be tampered with, no matter what anyone will say, even the voice in your own head. Yeah, the Hebrew tradition called that the adversary, but it was translated in the Bible as the devil. Oh yeah, the devil inside. It doesn't matter what you call it, but we all know that particular voice in our head. So there's a story that I was told that Jesus at a young age was living in the desert with the Essenes, and he went into the desert and he drew a circle and he wasn't going to move. And his postulate to himself was like, if I'm created in the image of the Creator, then I must be like him. I must be all powerful. And then the voice goes, oh yeah, well, jump in the ravine and see if you survive. And this is like, no, it's not that my body is titanium, like the popular song by Sia. No, it's more like my consciousness, my authentic consciousness, as I was created by the singular creator of everything, is all powerful. So I'm not God, but I'm exactly like God. But as I've trained myself to be in this body and with all these emotional, analytical capacity perceptions that I get, I've forgotten my authentic self. And not alone, because most of the 8 billion or 9 billion people that walk on the planet have lost that connection with their true self, unless you're truly awakened or enlightened, whatever the word is. Now, I hone in on near-death experiences because, for example, Carl-Jung, famous psychology, he had a near-death experience, and similar, for example, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had a near-death experiences, and she really researched people in hospitals that were diagnosed with terminal cancer. So their life was about to end, and the books are still available. So yeah, Dante Alighieri in the 1300s or so had a near-death experiences, and he saw people in Inferno and in heaven and all those things, and that's where we have those words from now. All right, so I will use this paper to go through these lessons, and I try to be as concise as possible, but I also don't want to rush. So there's quite a bit of paperwork because we have 11 lessons. So the first one, let me just go back here, is the foundational lesson that unite human frailty with the strength of source. Okay, so I've picked that as the first lesson because you need to really at least have the vision that you are something bigger than your emotional, analytical, perceptional capacity of consciousness. There's something bigger, and that power is bigger than you and can heal you effortlessly. All right, so I hope you don't let the word frailty scare you, because it's not about weakness, it's about being honest. So honest with where you potentially are struggling, honest with where you need support. You just need to be honest enough to stop pretending you've got it all figured out, or that it is possible for you or anyone to all figure it out. So when we begin to freely identify the mental and emotional blocks that keep us disconnected from source, from love, from peace, from our true nature, we unlock something beautiful. It's not perfection, but it is wholeness. It is not control, but connection. So wholeness, or to be holistic, means that If I was created in the image of the Creator, then everyone else originally was created in the image of the Creator. And then for everything needs to be conscious, because the Creator definitely is conscious. And then we get into this concept of to know yourself, there's this myriad of expressions. But the idea is that it has already taken place. So you're always looking back at it. Anyway, I put here the power of acknowledging vulnerability. So you learned that acknowledging your vulnerabilities doesn't weaken you. So it's okay to go ahead. It does the opposite. It fosters resilience, it enhances empathy, it builds strength, not from your ego, not from your emotional, analytical, perceptual mind, but from your true essence. So when we stop defending our wounds and start witnessing them, we open ourselves to healing. Okay. Now, you also looked at some of your mental filters. So to grow, you also needed to understand biases that distort how you see yourself and others. So two of the biggest culprits we looked at first, the confirmation bias, which means we seek out evidence that proves we're right, even if we're actually hurting ourselves. Nah. Optimism bias. We assume things will turn out okay just because we want them to, without facing what really needs healing. And also, let's not forget the third one here, the Dunning-Kruger effect. They're tricky little bias where we overestimate our understanding, especially in areas we haven't explored deeply. Sound familiar? Well, you're not alone. And guess what? Recognizing these patterns wasn't a defeat. It meant liberation. So, next point was generosity and the joy of giving. So, another miracle truth we explored was generosity enriches both the giver and the receiver. So, every time you offer kindness, patience, time, or listening ear, you're not just giving, but at the same time, you're receiving too. You're reinforcing your own connection to Source and to the sacred in everyone around you. So it is the truth that changes everything. So here's the deeper invitation. Ideas are eternally connected to their source. Your thoughts of love, forgiveness, creativity, and compassion, they don't come from your emotional, analytical, perceptional mind. They come from the part of you that is eternal, your authentic self. And that led us to the profound realization that you are not a body, you are not your history, and you are not your fear. And we looked at near-death experiences and mystical traditions, all said the same thing. We are not limited to form, we are consciousness, we are awareness, we are free. So then we went into some really practical, transformative exercises. So, what did we learn on how you unite your frailty with your strength? Well, not with force, but with clarity. We looked at 4 simple, powerful practices to begin with. So, we had release the need to prove a point. So, underwritten by that is let love be more important than being right. 2, mind mapping your negative thoughts. Get them on paper, look at them with compassion but not with judgment. 3 was set clear boundaries, not from anger but from self-respect. And number 4, cultivate a mindset of clarity and peace. It wasn't about positivity necessarily, it was more about a sacred perspective. So, no one is expected to be flawless, neither you. You are not expected to be flawless, but you were invited to remember that you are whole. Your fundament is whole and eternal, out of linear time. And wholeness begins with uniting your human experience with the strength of Source. Okay. Next, we looked at the noise inside of our head we get caught in. The self-doubt, the comparisons, the constant measuring of worth based on meaningless things. But I told you something simple yet life-changing. You are a miracle. Right now, as you are, not when you fix something, not when you achieve something, now. So think about it. Your mind imagines, learns, creates, dreams, and deepest still, your consciousness, your awareness is vast and vibrant and sacred. You are a living, breathing expression of Source itself. But you forgot, and you forgot because of the noise in your head. So we went further and learned again that our mind are shaped by biases, mental shortcuts we didn't ask for but got anyway. They cloud our sight and shrink our potential. We explored some of these. The fact heuristic, when emotions override logic. Belief perseverance, where we hold onto beliefs even when life shows us something new, because letting go can feel like losing ourselves. The Einstellung effect, that's German, Einstellung. We miss new insights because old patterns get in the way. We assume we already know. The pessimism bias. We believe our current view is the only view, but what if the lens we're looking through is just a fraction of the full picture? And we also looked at the sunk cost fallacy. We hold on to things just because we've invested time, energy, or identity in them, even when they no longer serve us. So who's due to these biases? Me, you, everyone, really. And often they are implicit. That means like we're not conscious of these biases, but we do have them and we use them. But when we become aware of these patterns, something incredible happens. We free ourselves. We shift from survival to dominion, from noise to knowing. And you now know what I mean by knowing and what I mean by noise. All the self-doubt, the unworthiness, that's the noise. And the knowing is like, yes, I know my essence. I know my authentic self. Okay, we explored how your mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Yeah, you're not guilty. Everyone does it. Every human mind, ego mind, emotional, analytical, perceptional, capacitated mind does so. And we're stuck in the past and have therefore missed the miracle of now. But here's the truth. The present moment is the only place you'll ever feel truly alive. And in that presence, you return to your miracle nature. So we discovered that Source is in everything I see. Wholeness includes everything. Love, the universal love, means it's an abstraction. It's whole. It includes everything. Okay? Source is in everything I see. Not just the beautiful or spiritual things. Everything. The messy, the mundane, the mysterious. When you see the world through that lens, the whole world becomes sacred. Nothing is separate. Nothing is meaningless. You are a miracle in a miraculous world. So, we made it practical. You asked yourself, where am I resisting the truth of who I am? What limiting role have I taken on? And who do I truly want to be? You might have to change careers, for example, or relationships. I don't know. What if I stopped asking for permission to shine? Okay, you can just go ahead and shine your light, be who you are. And you did exercises to identify the resistance, to shift your lens. Every time you feel not enough, say, I'm a miracle. I choose to see differently. And we did exercises for you to acknowledge your talents. Yeah? So then we had the last reminder of that lesson of you are a miracle, that you're not here to shrink, you're here to expand, to love, learn, shine, grow. You are a miracle. Not someday, not after you fix yourself, now. So the invitation is to stop dimming the light and start seeing clearly. So now we're at lesson 3. And okay, let me start with this. There's something we often forget on the journey back to ourselves. You were never separate from Source, not for a moment, not even when you felt lost, afraid, or unworthy. Source isn't somewhere out there. When people speak of heaven, the original word for sky and heaven was the same. And without thinking of being separate objects, this is my body and there's a room and there's things in it, we don't think like, oh, heaven, it's up there in the blue sky or the universe with all the stars in it. And of course, God is in everything I see. We just learned that. But it's not outside ourselves. We can give up the search. It's who we are. So, Source isn't somewhere out there. It's not a reward or a prize to be earned. It is within you always, already, whispering beneath the noise, waiting beneath the guilt. But to hear it, to feel it, to live in that flow, we learn there's something we must do first, and that is to purify. All right, purification is necessary first. Now, I don't mean become perfect. This isn't about earning your way to grace. It is not punishment, it is liberation. It's the gentle, powerful act of releasing the burdens, the guilt, the shame, the limiting beliefs that cloud your awareness. You don't have to carry those anymore, because at your core, we learned you're innocent, you're whole, you are already enough. We learned miracles aren't rare, they're not reserved for the lucky or the holy. They are everyone's birthright. They are your birthright. But before miracles can become a natural rhythm of your life, you must make space for them. Clear the clutter, unburden the mind. This is purification. It's like going into your cellar and clean it out. What you do when you move, you throw out a third of your stuff. It takes 6 months. You got all sorts of stuff back with you. Or if you have a shed or even a barn, you just collect all the old stuff in there. You need to clean it out. Okay, so we looked at guilt, and guilt acts like a fog. Can't see clearly. Distorting your vision, blocking your joy, keeping you trapped in fear, judgment, and disconnection. So guilt tells you that you're broken, that you failed, that you're unworthy of love or light. But guilt is a lie. Once more, guilt is a lie. Every moment you choose to release it, you move closer to the truth that you are already one with Source. You always have been. Let's look at how we can gently clear the flock. And we looked at 4 biases. The ambiguity effect. When fear of the unknown stops us from stepping into the new. But we also realize clarity comes from movement, not from standing still. The anchoring bias, how we cling to the first story we were told about ourselves. But you are allowed to write a new one, and can, because we only record illusions. We do not record reality. It's not knowing, it's speculating, believing. The bandwagon effect. Just because others believe something doesn't mean it's others believe something, it doesn't mean it's true for you. You're not here to conform, you're here to awaken. Cognitive dissonance was the 4th one. It's the tension you feel when truth knocks, but your old beliefs resist. So that tension we learned is sacred. And we said, let it open you, not harden you. All right? And then we explored some sacred truths. First, I have given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. So you are not a passive receiver of life, you are its projector. Projection precedes perception. Okay? I won't do the whole lesson now, but we looked at that. You now are about changing the lens, changing your world. I have no neutral thoughts and I see no neutral things. Everything you think, everything you perceive carries the energy of your inner world. Clean the inner mirror and the outer world will start to reflect peace. Okay, and the most beautiful shift of all, shifting from being the victim of the world to creator. You are not the story of your pain, you are not the wound, you are not healing, you are the voice that rewrites the narrative. Okay, and that brings us to lesson 4. The next lesson was an invitation, not to fight your past, not to erase it, but to gently loosen its grip and to awaken to the presence of your true self. Because here's what we often forget. Much of what we see and react to isn't the world as it is, it's the world as it was. Through the filters of past experiences, beliefs, memories, and so forth, we perceive not reality, but history repeating in our minds. We think we're responding to what's here, but we're really reliving what was. And there's a good reason for it, because if we would have to be in a new experience all the time, we couldn't navigate safely through space and time. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's the reality of things. And just as the past dominates our vision, the future hijacks our attention, speculating, predicting, worrying, all in an attempt to control the uncontrollable. But the future is not real, it is a projection, a story built on memory, and memory is not truth, it is interpretation. In this fourth principle, undo a preoccupation with the past, we began to undo that cycle. We paused, we noticed, we became compassionate observers of the thought patterns that kept pulling us into yesterday or rushing us into tomorrow. Yeah? We became aware of the cycle of being preoccupied with the past or the future. And most importantly, we practice coming back to now. The still, quiet space where truth actually lives, because that is the miracle. The present moment is all that is happening. It's all that is real. It's where peace lies, it's where joy breathes, it's where you are. Not the you created by your past, not the you worrying about what might be, but the real you, unburdened, whole, and awake. So, we explored how past and future create illusions, and we looked at 4 biases. The gambler's fallacy is a great example. So, what is the gambler's fallacy? Well, it's believing patterns from the past can predict what happens next. But life isn't a slot machine. You are not trapped in these cycles. They're a fallacy. The hot hand fallacy, assuming a streak must continue. But you are not your momentum. You are free to change at any moment. The rosy retrospection, when memory distorts the past with idealism. But nostalgia isn't truth, it's a story editing by longing. And then the illusion of explanatory depth, the feeling that we understand something deeply when we really don't. This includes your own story. The past is not as clear or final as you think. Okay, so I won't go much deeper in it, but that's what we looked at. We also reflected on 2 truths that shift everything. There is no actual link of memory with the past. The past does not determine what you are now, and what you experience is now. All future thinking is based on memory, which means the future you fear is just the past repackaged. So we practice releasing the past with grace, letting go of future speculation, returning to presence again and again. So, because you are not your past, you are not defined by what happened, what didn't happen, or how it happened. You are not defined by your mistakes, not even by your triumphs. So the miracle is this: you are always more than your story. And when you stop referencing the past and stop building futures out of fear, you begin to see the one who was always there, still loving free, your authentic self. So the final lesson in this journey was called Reveal the Real You, the one untouched by yesterday, unafraid of tomorrow, alive right here in this breath. So we practice for today. Just pause. Let go of one memory that no longer serves you. Release one future that never existed, and let yourself land fully in the now. Because this moment is where your power lives, is where your peace begins, it is where you are. Okay, so now we're at lesson 5. Miracles unite us. So I've got 1, 2, 3. Oh my God. 4. Oh no, that's lesson 6 as well. Okay. Only 2. All right. Miracles unite us. At the center of this principle is one extraordinary truth. You are not alone in experiencing the effects of your thoughts. This idea may feel radical, it may feel like a stretch. But once you see mind and thoughts as consciousness and see it's one unified field, there's nowhere where your consciousness stops and the next one begins. Maybe this is why when you go to a forest and you're very strongly in the consciousness of that tree, and the tree has no brain and therefore no stresses like our brain presents to us, we can start releasing our anxieties, our unworthiness, and any of that kind of stuff. Okay. It may feel a stretch that minds are joined, that we're not alone in experiencing the effects of our thoughts. But it's the key to understanding miracles. What if your thoughts don't just stay inside you? What if they ripple beyond your awareness, touching the field we all share? In this principle, you began to explore what happens when you stop pretending that our minds are private islands and start remembering we are joined. So you may have noticed a rhythm to this journey. Sometimes thinking appears to come before perceiving, other times perception seems to shape thought. It is because in truth they're not separate at all. In the mind, cause and effect are simultaneous. Each thought births a perception, and each perception reinforces a thought in a seamless field of awareness. And that field is not yours alone, it is shared. This brought us to a truth that's both humbling and empowering. There are no private thoughts, not because someone is watching, but because your mind contributes to the whole. Every thought you think about yourself, others in the world, has an impact that goes far beyond what you see. This can feel heavy at first, it may even provoke resistance. You might ask, does this mean I'm responsible for everyone else's experience? I know you will think that, because I did, and everyone I spoke to did. No. Answer is no. You're not responsible for everyone else's experience, but it does mean your healing is never yours alone. And neither is your pain, especially when it goes unexamined. You are not locked inside yourself. Your mind is not a vault. Your healing contributes to the healing of the whole. Your consciousness is not a vault. So this is what miracles do. They unite us. The veil of being separate dissipates. And you know this. You can walk into a room and suddenly you really feel the consciousness of that room. Yeah? You walk into a forest, you feel that consciousness. You go into a beach, there's no one there. You notice that consciousness. You see a puppy, you connect with that consciousness of the puppy. Yeah. It just comes into your awareness. It's always there. So it's a matter of what do I focus on to become aware of. You got it. You got this. So you explored then this more deeply by looking at cognitive biases that reinforce the illusion of separation. So we looked at 4 of them. And there were the Barnum effect, and this is when vague general ideas feel personal and unique and reinforcing the ego and specialness instead of shared humanity. The naive realism, believing your perception is the most accurate version of reality, forgetting that others see through different lenses. Yeah. The negativity bias, focusing what's wrong, dangerous or broken, blocking the miracle of connection and possibility. And the self-serving bias, taking credit for the good and blaming others for the bad. Keeping yourself stuck in the illusion of me versus them. I'm right, they're wrong. Okay. Each of these biases keeps us in isolation. These biases tell us you are separate, you are alone, you must protect yourself. But this lesson taught you something different. You are not a victim of the world you see, the world inside or out, because you are not separate from it. You are its co-creator. And when you no longer want a world you made in fear, that world begins to dissolve, and in its place a new vision begins. One built on unity, one in which healing is shared, love is remembered, and miracles flow without effort. So in this practice, you claim the power of shared healing. You let unity become the lens for a new vision. You release the old painful story of me against the world. Yeah? So when you won, you can also stop thinking that you're doing something to fix the world. No, everything already is. Everyone is perfect and whole. It's just these perceptions we have because we have decided to come into a body and experience consciousness, reality, through the lens of our emotional, analytical, perceptional capacity of the brain's consciousness. Okay, so love was remembered, miracles started flowing without effort, and you claimed the power of shared healing. You let unity become the lens for a new vision, and you release the old painful story of me against the world. And most profoundly, you began to dismantle the invisible wall of separation, not just in your thoughts, but in your being. Because when you remember that we are joined, everything shifts. The impossible becomes possible, solutions appear, connections blossom, and miracles, true miracles flow. So for today, pause and breathe. Let someone in. Let a thought of love ripple outward. Let yourself believe, not in isolation, but in connection. Because the truth is, we are already joined. We always have been. And the more we remember this, the more miracles we welcome home. Okay. Lesson 6, soul identification. You will believe you are part of where you think you are. You let that land, and then next we went on. Because if you believe you are your job, your struggle, your past, your life will reflect that belief. If you believe you are unworthy, broken, and separate, you will act, think, and choose as though that's true. But what if that belief is not truth, only a lens? Well, the 6th lesson asks you to go deeper than your roles, deeper than your performance, your history, or your circumstances, and remember who you truly are. You must be whole to be real. Wholeness is not something you achieve, it's something you remember. And remembrance begins when you stop identifying with the false self. You are not your pain, you are not your confusion, you are not even your successes. You are something greater, something still, something eternal. You are soul. You explored what it means to undo false identification, to see yourself not as a fractured self-concept, but as one with the love that created you. So you learned to notice when your identity was fused with pain, performance, the world's condition, the past, and instead of clinging on, you practiced letting go. It was not a denial of hardship, it was a return to peace. Very important statement. You're not denying any of these stories and things that seem to have happened to you. You simply choose to leave them behind and return to peace. You were invited to forgive, not as a moral act, but as a vision shift. So forgiveness became the way back to wholeness. And we did the Ho'oponopono thing from Hawaii. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Yeah? Take full responsibility. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Done. Boundary set. No, I'm not gonna bicker with you anymore, even if you want to. Let bygones be bygones. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. So you're thinking of people who are still very confused, as confused. In the Bible it says forgive, millions of times, the most important thing. But forgiveness to me can better be translated as seeing people as still confused because they do not know their authentic self. So then when their behavior becomes really, really they're off the mark, which an archery term in Aramaic was being off the mark, is what's translated in English as sin. So when you sin, you're off the mark because you're not connected with your true self. So your behavior becomes erratic, sometimes murderous, etc., etc., etc. Okay? So Jesus is on the cross and says to criminals, hey, you can still be in heaven tonight. It has nothing to do with your past. To be in awareness of your authentic self. Or when they put him on the cross, Father, forgive them, they really don't know what they do. It's his continuity to practicing a vision of wholeness. Okay, it's really bad to crucify people, and now they're crucifying me. But obviously they're not in connection with their authentic self. I'm not going to do Bible class, but I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I like that. It's from Hawaii. So that particular saying to me is the soul's voice. It's the authentic self breaking through the mind's confusion. And each time you forgive, each time you surrendered control, each time you chose truth over illusion, you stop proving your point, none of that anymore. You remembered who you are. So it's transformation. It's an undoing of all the stuff that's in your perceptional mind. So to support this transformation, you brought awareness to 6 cognitive biases that anchor the false identity. Here we go. Authority bias. Believing something is true just because someone in power says so. It's blinding yourself to your inner authority. In other words, disposition effect. Holding on to the familiar even when it no longer serves you. So you keep your old identity because it feels safe. The empathy gap. Underestimating how much your state affects your understanding. Forgetting your wholeness when you are overwhelmed. Functional fixedness, only seeing things as they've always been. Believing change is impossible because this is just who I am. Don't want to go deep. Yeah, that kind of stuff. IKEA effect, overvaluing what you've built, even if it limits you. Clinging to self-concepts because you've invested in them. Illusion of control, thinking you must fix, control, or manage everything. Exhausting yourself instead of surrendering to the deeper flow. So each of these biases kept you locked in separation. But soul doesn't operate from bias, it sees clearly. It knows you are already whole, so your authentic self is clear. In this practice, you reclaim true vision. Not the kind that sees with the eyes, but the kind that sees with awareness. In all traditions, what's called the spiritual eye. It's about awareness. It's not about seeing images and forms. So this vision knows you cannot be both love and fear. You cannot walk in truth while clinging to illusion. Each time you think a fearful thought about yourself or someone else, you're calling on the limited mind. But each time you forgive, you're calling on the limitless truth of Source. And in that moment, you remember the miracle. Forgiveness here is not soft denial. It is strength. It's looking pain in the face and saying, this came from confusion. I no longer need to carry it. I'm going to choose peace instead. I am my authentic self. We learned that every moment you forgive, you reclaim your wholeness. Every time you stop asking your emotional, analytical mind to carry the weight of your healing, you take one step closer to the truth. You were never broken, you were never separate, you were never anything less than whole. Vision is not passive, it is a creative act. It's the forgiveness of illusions, effortlessly. the restoration of soul, of your authentic self. So, again, at the end we paused. We let all the old identities fall away. The roles, the judgments, the fears, we let them dissolve. And then we remembered, you are not a story, you are not a concept, you are your authentic self, whole, loved, and unshakable. Okay, on to lesson 7. It's going to be long, I think. All right, 7, happiness is my function. That's lesson 7. So there is a part of you that has never forgotten joy. It knows how to laugh without reason, how to rest in stillness, how to trust life as it unfolds. It's not something you must earn, it's not something you must chase, it's simply the truth of who you are. Happiness is your function, not as a temporary high, not as a break from suffering, but as the state your inner system is actually built to sustain. In this 7th principle, you were asked to realize something radical. Your brain and mind were designed to lead you towards happiness. Your inner wiring, your nervous system, your intuition, your emotional feedback is all pointing in one direction. Well-being, balance, peace. But there is a catch. At every moment, you are choosing between 2 internal guides. Emotional analytical mind, the part that runs on fear, logic twisted by emotion, illusions, and survival habits. It is not evil, it is confused. Not confused about this is that, and I use a glass to drink fluid. It's confused about the complexity of life, the purpose of life, and who you really are, okay? And therefore, it can drive confused behavior. Now, the other internal guide is your authentic self, the quiet, unwavering presence of truth within you. This guide doesn't shout, it just whispers. Try to break in any gap that your perceptual consciousness has. Okay, here's the key. No third option. There is no third option. Every experience, every feeling, every result comes from which guide you choose to follow. So this lesson invited you into great honesty. You are asked to choose against conflict, stop wasting energy defending yourself, let go of the need to justify your wounds, stop making excuses for why you're still in pain. Not because your feelings are invalid, but because happiness is available. Yeah. So your mind can create happiness effortlessly when you allow it. But it can also cling to old patterns like conflict, blame, and fear, simply because they feel familiar. Go back to the old ways. So you did practice recognizing this, and as you stood in your wholeness, not titanium hard, but Teflon soft, nothing sticks, you discovered a new resilience. No attack thought could stick. Why? Because you knew it wasn't about your authentic self. It wasn't even real. It was an illusion. You began to see again with the original side of your authentic self. Not looking for mistakes, not magnifying separation, but seeing only light, only beauty, only truth. So, along the way, you also uncovered hidden mental traps, cognitive biases that keep happiness just out of reach. So it was the illusory correlation, connecting dots that don't belong together, like bad things happen when I'm happy, so better not get too happy. Okay, you get my drift? The illusory truth effect, repeating lies until they feel true. I'm not good enough becomes believable when enforced long enough. Yep, say it 5 times every hour and it becomes your reality. The just world hypothesis, believing people get what they deserve. Maybe I'm suffering because I really deserve it. But no, you are not being punished, you are being invited to awaken. Leveling and sharpening, distorting memories to fit a narrative. that one mistake defines me, but it doesn't. It never ever did. So, you don't practice letting go of the idea of deserving. You remembered you are already whole and nothing real can be threatened. You practice building a new habit, not of control, but of trust. Trust that happiness is not a reward, it is your nature. It is the frequency of your authentic self. Happiness is not the goal of healing, it's the sign that healing is happening. And when you begin to live from this truth, you stop chasing, you stop proving, you start being whole, free, alive. So once more, happiness is not the goal of healing, it is the sign that healing is happening. When you return and remember your true self, your authentic self, you naturally, effortlessly become happy. Get it? Yeah, I think you did. Yeah, I know you did. He says. Lesson 8. Love is received from source. So, we looked at the belief that many of us carry deep inside, that love must be earned. We need to be good people before we get loved. We need to do better, more together, more worthy before we are lovable. But here, in this sacred 8th principle, you remembered something ancient and freeing. Love is received from source. It's not earned, it's not bargained for, it's not waiting on a better version of you. Love flows to you simply because you exist. This lesson wasn't about adding something to yourself. It was about peeling back the layers, the stories, the identities, the performance, until you touched the truth beneath them all. You were invited to ask one of the most transformative questions of all. Am I going to keep identifying with my brokenness, or will I finally embrace my wholeness? That question is not a judgment, it's a turning point, because wholeness isn't something you achieve, it's something you remember. There he does it with his hands. You must think it's very important. I think so. You remember it. Okay, you were never disconnected from love. You just forgot where to look. This principle guided you back to that still point within, the quiet knowing that love has always been with you, not as an emotion, not as a reward, but as your natural inheritance. You also began to uncover some of the hidden distortions, the cognitive biases that subtly block your ability to receive what is already yours. So let's remember them. The action bias, the reflex to do, fix, strive, perform. I'll try harder, maybe then I'll be loved. But love was never earned through exhaustion. That's the fact of it. Second, attentional bias, the way fear filters your focus. I only see the evidence that I'm not enough. But fear is not the whole picture, it's just the loudest voice. And choice overload, the overwhelm of too many options. I don't know what to choose, so I'll do nothing. But love is simple. Love chooses you, not the other way around. All right, and then number 4, cognitive dissonance. The discomfort of receiving what contradicts your self-image. Love can't be true because I've believed for so long that I am unworthy. But the truth is not here to match your story. It's here to liberate you from it. This lesson was not about fixing yourself. It was about receiving what was already offered. Freely, endlessly, unconditionally. You practice letting go of chasing, of proving, of pretending. You practice remembering that love isn't something you perform for, it's something you're open to. And in those quiet moments of surrender, those deep breaths, those small pauses of honesty, you felt it, didn't you? You felt it. That still loving presence that never left. That one that doesn't care how long you forgot. The one that calls you back. Not with guilt, but with grace. You practice dropping the need to do for love. Noticing where fear tries to filter your perception. Choosing peace even in the face of distraction. Allowing the tension of transformation without running from it. And in all of this, a truth began to rise. You do not need to become anything. You only need to become aware of what has always been true. Love has already been given. The only real question is, are you willing to receive it? When you stop chasing love outside yourself, you become a beacon of it within. And from that center, miracles radiate, not as effort, but as overflow. Okay. So here we go. Love in action. Number 9. There is a moment in every healing journey when you realize this isn't about fixing yourself. It is about releasing what was never true. That's the essence of this 9th principle. Love in action. This wasn't a feel-good slogan or a temporary high. It was a call to something deeper. A transformation that begins not in your behavior, but in your perception. In this lesson, you were again shown something extraordinary, that healing does not come from effortful striving, but from letting go of the illusion that you are broken. You were invited to awaken your spiritual eye, to see beyond the world of fear and remember a deeper truth. Love is not an idea, love is not an escape, love is what you are. And when you live it, it becomes healing. And when you're healed, you're happy. You were asked to challenge long-held stories. The fear is protection, the shame is identity. That healing is something that happens to you, not through you. The truth is, pain is not punishment. Discomfort is not danger. It is just a signal, a message pointing you back home. You're off the mark. And you listened. You also explored how certain cognitive biases make it harder to live from love. Number 1, the self-serving bias. It's not my fault. It blocks humility and it prevents deep honesty. Source confusion. This feels wise. It tricks us into following the wrong guide. Projection bias. They must be thinking what I'm thinking. This distorts connection and replaces it with assumption. And finally, the bias blind spot. Everyone else is biased, but not me. It keeps us stuck in resistance to growth. And there aren't just academic ideas, they're real distortions that keep you disconnected from the power of your own presence. But you didn't stay in the dark. No. Through reflection, honesty, and courage, you practice what it means to let love act through you. Not as perfection, not as performance, but as presence. You practice letting pain signal truth, not confirm identity. Calling on the spiritual eye, even when it's uncomfortable. Dropping projection and choosing clarity in your relationships. Owning your growth without shame, and most of all, learning to respond from love rather than react from fear. You stepped into the truth that changed everything. Nothing outside of me can hurt me. Nothing outside of me can save me. Yeah? Don't depend on an external savior. Don't depend on Jesus even. Oh, he saved us. No. Depend on your authentic self, just like Jesus did. You need to come into your power, just like the Buddha did. You need to come, awaken, be reborn into your own power. And that power is just as powerful as the power of the singular creator, the source of everything. Yay. That insight can feel sobering, maybe even unfair at first, but it's not a punishment. It's a reclamation of power. Nothing outside of me can hurt me. Nothing outside of me can save me. Because once you stop outsourcing your peace, you remember love is never somewhere else. It lives here, in you, as you. That's love in action. It doesn't wait for the world to change. It doesn't need a stage or an applause. It just shows up quietly, consistently, but honestly, with open eyes and a willing heart. This is how healing becomes reality. This is how illusion is undone. This is how we come home. You don't have to try harder. You just have to stop believing the lies and let love lead. So lesson 10. Miracles perceive wholeness. What if noticing about you was ever missing? What if your healing didn't require more striving, more fixing, or more proving, but simply seeing differently? That is the quiet revolution at the heart of this principle. Miracles perceive wholeness, not someday, not eventually, but now, if you're willing to look with new eyes. This lesson wasn't about becoming something, it was about remembering what has always been true. You were never broken. It guides us back to a spiritual law that feels almost too simple to be true. Partial truth is no truth at all. You cannot live in both guilt and innocence, both clarity and confusion, and expect peace to feel stable. Hello? The perceptional world cannot give you peace. It cannot offer you peace. Just experience of this world. Miracles arise only from wholeness, never from contradiction. They do not fix your life. They undo the false idea that something needed fixing to begin with. We looked at the subtle ways our perception becomes fragmented, especially through two particular biases. The response bias, where we say the right spiritual thing, like I trust, while secretly hiding fear or anger. And the second bias, it's the acquiescence bias, where we conform to authority or tradition, even when it doesn't align with our inner knowing. So these biases aren't malicious, but they're habits that keep us performing spiritually instead of living it. They protect our image while costing us authenticity. So you don't have to nicely stack circular stones on the beachfront where someone sits in a perfect yoga fit with the most beautiful female form, long hair and blissful, peaceful face. That's a demonstration. That's not living. I hope you get it. I hope people who model don't feel insulted, but it is the truth. You need to live it. Okay. So again, let me repeat. These biases are malicious. They're habits. They keep us performing spirituality instead of living it. They protect our image while costing us authenticity. But the miracle has no interest in performance. It meets you where you are, not where you pretend to be, and it lifts your perception. Gently but honestly until you can see the truth. Wholeness was never gone. You just forgot to look for it. We explored how much of our pain comes from the belief that we are missing pieces. We chase achievement, roles, relationship, even spiritual milestones, hoping that finally we'll feel complete. But all that chasing, it is just a fragmented search for something that was never lost. You weren't asked to give up your desires. You were asked to see through them, to recognize that every longing at its root is a longing for love, for unity, for peace. You were not created to live a small, safe version of your life. You were not created to settle. And that's the bold invitation of this lesson. You do not ask too much of life, you ask too little. Because when you ask for fragments, you get crumbs. But when you ask for truth, you receive everything. This principle doesn't shame your pain, it dignifies it. It reminds you that your pain is not proof of lack, but a signal that you've accepted too little when so much more is available. And what is that more? It is this: to know yourself as a whole, to see others as a whole, to return again and again to the miracle of that vision. You are not asked to abandon the world, you're asked to see it differently, not in pieces, not in parts, but in the unified clarity of love. That's the miracle, not a reward, not a magic trick, but a natural outcome of seeing truly. So if you've ever wondered, am I enough? This lesson answers, you already are, you always were, and nothing real was ever missing. So, lesson 11, through this review, lengthy review, but I hope it's helpful. So, final lesson, miracles are never lost. What if something you did in love, something you never saw the outcome of, changed someone's life forever? What if one quiet moment of forgiveness, one shift in your perception was enough to alter the course of someone else's story, even if you never met? That is the invitation of this lesson. A miracle is never lost. it doesn't just touch the one who receives it, it touches everyone it was meant to bless. This was not just a lesson in personal healing, it was a call to become a channel, a living transmission through which love moves far beyond what you can see. A miracle doesn't always feel dramatic. Often it's subtle, quiet, more likely invisible, but its effects are real and far-reaching. It's a seed planted in the consciousness we all share, a shift not just in your mind, but in the collective field of all minds, all the consciousness joined with you. That's how powerful you are. Miracles remind us what the ego wants us to forget. We are not separate. We are deeply, eternally connected. We are one. So when you accept a miracle, when you choose love instead of fear, peace instead of attack, that healing doesn't end with you. It ripples, it radiates, it remembers for everyone what is real. So, in this lesson, we explored a powerful contrast. Making versus creating. So making is what the ego does. Constructing identities, stories, self-images. Creating is what spirit does. Extending truth, wholeness and love. Making is rooted in effort, performance, in image. Creating is effortless. It simply is, and it begins from a foundation that cannot be shaken. But here's the catch. Here's the catch. Most of what we think is real in our world was made, not created. That self you defend, that history you replay, that body you identify with, it's the product. All of these are the products of making. Temporary, fragile, fear-based. And the mind, the consciousness, deeply invested in these constructs is influenced by distortions like the Barnum effect, believing vague affirmations as unique truths, belief perseverance, clinging to all that is, even in the face of truth, bike shedding, focusing on what doesn't matter to avoid what does, cognitive dissonance, feeling torn between the false self and the true one, commitment bias, staying loyal to rules or paths just because you've come this far. These biases form the architecture of separation. They block the miracle by defending the illusion, but the miracle has no need to argue or attack. It simply undoes. The central realization of this lesson: the false self fears miracles because miracles reveal that the self is never broken to begin with. And this revelation is not destruction, it is liberation. In many near-death experiences, people report a stunning clarity. I am not a body, there is no death. But you don't have to wait for death to remember what's real. You can live now as one who knows where they come from. You were not made by the world. You were created by love. That truth remains untouched, no matter what you've believed, no matter what you've been through. And that is why miracles always work, because they are grounded in what never changes, even when you don't see the outcome, even when the world offers no confirmation, no reflection. That is not my reality. Yes, we know. You need the miracle, and the miracle's never lost. This lesson invited you, you've done the lesson already. This lesson invited you to confront the invisible contracts you've made with limitation, staying attached to personality over your true identity, the authentic self, defending outdated stories, focusing on trivial details to avoid deep transformation, feeling tension when the truth contradicts your self-image, remaining loyal to fear because you've invested so much in it. But now you're seeing through these distortions, and as they fall away, something clearer, quieter and truer begins to rise. Not the body, not the story, not the struggle, but the light, the love, the freedom. This is your inheritance, not as something earned, but as something remembered. Every miracle you accept reminds the world that healing is possible, and every moment you return to love strengthens the signal. You are not small, you are not alone, and no act of love is ever wasted, because miracles, real miracles, are never lost. So hopefully after this lengthy review, and I hope if you needed to, just to chunk it into 11 bits and stop at the end of each chapter, hopefully you can see now that we have a miracle principle, but that the principle doesn't do anything for us. We have to become aware of the investment and all the limitations, the biases and the shortcuts that we invest in to keep us to only being an identity based on the qualities and capacities of our emotional, analytical, perceptional mind. And you will believe that you're part of where you think you are. So when you walk around the planet, yes, you feel you're part of it. You're this body with all the stuff that goes with it, with all your stories and all your hurts and successes and all of that sort of stuff. If you want mental health, if you want peace, you have to stop looking where it's not. It is not in that mind. It's not in that consciousness. It's not in that awareness. You can ask questions till the cows come home. You will not get the answers to be in an unshakable peace. That can only happen if you remember, if you connect with your authentic self. So to get there, you need to transform. You need to be undone from all these investments that you naturally placed, that you don't actively choose for, but are inherent in how the design of this body with its mind and its consciousness are. So what we really need next is create vision. So all of this learning you've done, all of this undoing can be anchored in a simple vision. You need to craft it yourself. I will support you. I will show you new biases, new miracle principles, new opportunities opening up, and additional transformative experiences to anchor you deeper and deeper into your authentic self, and no longer being a victim of the world you see. All right, so that's in the next 11 lessons. Thank you.